The rain hadn't started yet, but the sky over the parking garage was already the color of a bruise when Alina Vaughn threw open my passenger door and dropped into the seat like she'd been running from something. "Drive," she said, then quieter, closer to my ear than she had any right to be. "Take me somewhere private." I stared at her. My hand was still frozen on the ignition of my leased silver sedan, the one I'd been sitting in for a full 4 minutes trying to decide whether I actually wanted to go home. Alina's dark hair was half-pinned, half-collapsing around her shoulders. She was still wearing the champagne silk dress from her father's charity gala upstairs, the one I'd spent 90 minutes not looking at. Because looking at Alina Vaughn was the kind of habit that got a man like me fired. Her father, Marcus Vaughn, signed my paychecks. Her father was, at that exact moment, 3 floors above us, shaking hands with senators. "Alina, please, Adrian." Her voice cracked on my name and something in my chest cracked with it. "Not here, anywhere but here." I put the car in drive. "I want to be clear about something before I go any further." I knew what I was doing. I wasn't some naive kid who wandered into a moment. I was 31 years old, 4 years into a senior consulting job I'd bled for, and I had spent every one of those 4 years drawing a very specific, very careful line between me and the boss's daughter. I'd nodded politely at company barbecues. I'd said Miss Vaughn when I meant Alina. I'd looked at the floor in elevators. And when she'd started showing up to the office in the last 6 months, 26 years old, freshly returned from her master's program in Milan, working on strategy out of the corner office next to mine, I had tripled the thickness of that line. She had spent those 6 months erasing it with a smile. I drove out of the garage in silence. Alina pulled her heels off and let them thunk into the footwell. She didn't ask where we were going. She just tucked her feet up under the silk of that dress and looked out the window, and every time we passed under a streetlight her face went gold and then dark and then gold again. And I gripped the wheel harder. "Whose engagement announcement was that?" I asked finally. The question came out rougher than I meant it to. "Mine," she said. I nearly missed the turn. Adrian was mine. As of an hour ago. Her laugh was thin and metallic and beautiful. "My father just told 600 people, including 2 board members and a congressman, that I am marrying Julian Cole next April. He forgot to tell me first. Alina," he gave a speech. He said the words, "Our 2 families uniting." He toasted my future. He toasted a man I have been on exactly 4 dinners with, none of them alone. And my mother stood next to him smiling like she'd been embalmed. She turned in her seat then, tucked one bare knee against the console and looked at me, really looked. "So when I saw you leaving and I saw your car, I thought, no, I am not going back up to that ballroom to be the good daughter tonight. Not tonight." I could feel her eyes on the side of my face like heat. "Where am I taking you?" I asked. "You said you had a place by the coast." I had said that. I had said it exactly once in April at a company retreat, standing on a balcony trying not to notice that Alina was standing next to me. I had said my grandmother left me a cottage in Rosemere. I go up when I need to disappear, and she had said take me sometime, and I had laughed and changed the subject and thought about that sentence every night for 4 months. She had remembered. "That's 2 hours away, Alina." Good. There is a specific kind of quiet that happens in a car at night when 2 people have decided not to say the thing they're actually thinking about. It's not silence, it's the opposite of silence. Every small sound gets amplified, the hum of the tires, the click of the turn signal, the soft rustle of silk when she shifted her legs. I could hear her breathing, she could hear mine. I have never in my life been so aware of another person's presence 6 inches away from me. "Halfway to Rosemere," she said, "you've never once flirted with me. Do you know how rare that is? I work for your father. That's not the reason. It's a reason, but not the reason." She turned toward me again. "Adrian, look at me for 1 second." I looked. Just for a second, her eyes were dark and steady and completely unafraid, and my hands went cold on the wheel. "That's what I thought," she said softly and turned back to the window. I don't know what she saw on my face. I don't want to know, because whatever it was the truth I had been swallowing for 6 months, and she had just caught the whole thing in a single glance. The cottage sat at the end of a gravel road, half swallowed by wild rosemary and salt-blown pines. I hadn't been up in 3 months. The porch light still worked. The key still stuck in the lock the way it always had. I pushed the door open and let Alina walk in ahead of me and watched her walk barefoot across the old wood floor in that ruined silk dress, and I thought, very calmly, "You are ruining your life right now, Adrian. You are watching yourself do it. There's a guest room," I said. "First door on the left, there should be a robe." She stopped in the middle of the living room, turned. "That's what you want to say to me right now, Alina?" "I jumped into your car in front of a security camera, Adrian, in front of my father's security camera. I told the valet you were my driver. I have burned tonight, I have burned it to the ground." She took one step toward me. "So no, I don't want the first door on the left. You're upset. Don't." Her voice was quiet, but it stopped me cold. "Don't tell me what I am's not you. Anyone else in that ballroom tonight can tell me what I am. Not you." The fireplace clicked as it cooled from a summer that hadn't happened yet. Outside, the wind moved through the pines, and somewhere far off the ocean was doing what oceans do. Alina took another step toward me. The silk of her dress moved with her, and I saw the exact moment she decided to stop being careful. "Tell me you don't want this," she said, "and I'll take the guest room, I'll take the couch, I'll take the porch. Say it and mean it, Adrian, and I will never bring it up again." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman who had just proven something to herself and to me at the same time, and it undid me more thoroughly than anything she could have said. "That's what I thought," she said again. "I should tell you what I did next. I want to tell you I did the right thing. I want to say I put her in the guest room and slept in the car. I want to be the guy in this story who wins by walking away. I'm not that guy." I crossed the room in 3 strides, and I stopped exactly 1 inch from her, close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off her collarbones through the silk, close enough that her breath caught. Close enough that if either of us tilted forward, we would not be standing anymore. I did not touch her. I don't know how I did not touch her. I put my hands on either side of her face, my palms almost against her skin, not quite hovering. And I looked at her the way I had wanted to look at her since the first afternoon she had walked into that office in a red coat and said, "Hi, I'm Alina. I don't bite." "If I do this," I said, "there is no version of Monday morning where I still have a job. There is no version of the next 10 years where your father speaks to either of us. You know that. I know you're going to lose things you can't get back. I know, Alina, Adrian, I have known this was coming since April. I've known since the balcony. I've known since the day I walked into your office and you wouldn't shake my hand because your palm was sweating and you thought I wouldn't notice." She laughed, low and shaky. "I noticed everything. I have noticed everything for 6 months. Ask me if I care what I'm about to lose. Do you care?" "Not tonight." I kissed her. "I have kissed other women. I have been in love before, twice, seriously, and I have kissed those women in doorways and in airports and in kitchens at 2 in the morning. I know what a first kiss is supposed to feel like. It is supposed to be a question. This was not a question. This was 6 months of answering." Her hands went into my hair and my hands went to her waist through the silk, and the whole cottage tilted about 10 degrees to the left. She made a small sound against my mouth, a sound I am going to hear in my head for the rest of my life, and I walked her backwards until her back met the wall next to the fireplace. And even then we didn't stop. Her mouth tasted like champagne and something warmer underneath, something like anger that had finally been allowed to be something else. I kissed the corner of her jaw. I kissed the place under her ear where her pulse was hammering. I said her name against her skin like it was a full sentence. She pulled back, not far, just enough to look at me. "Bedroom," she said. "Alina, I'm not asking for the rest of your life, Adrian. I'm asking for tonight. Give me tonight. I want to tell you," I said something wise. "I want to tell you." I held her face in my hands and said, "If we do this, it can't just be tonight. It has to mean something, because if it doesn't mean something, I don't survive it." What I actually said was, "Okay," and she took my hand. The bedroom in the cottage faces east. There's one window, no curtain, just the black square of night and the moon somewhere over the water. I remember the way her dress made a sound like an exhale when it slid to the floor. I remember she was shaking and I was shaking, and I held her face in both of my hands for a long moment before we did anything else, just breathing, forehead against forehead. Because I needed her to know, that I was not doing this lightly. That whatever this was, I had been carrying it for months, and I was not going to pretend in the morning that I hadn't. She whispered, I know. I've always known. I will keep the rest of that night to myself. That's between us and the moon, but I'll tell you this. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, when the wind had picked up and the rain we'd been promised was finally falling on the tin roof, she lay across my chest with her hair in my mouth and traced the tattoo on my ribs with one finger and said, Do you know why I really came down to the garage tonight? Tell me. I wasn't running from the engagement. Not really. She tilted her chin up. I was running to you before I lost the nerve, before my father made it impossible. Elena, I've been in love with you since April, Adrian. Since the balcony, since you told me about this cottage and then went out of your way to never mention it again. I could not breathe. You don't have to say it back, she said quickly. I know what tonight cost you. I know what Monday is going to cost you. I'm not asking you to. I kissed her to shut her up. Then I said, I've been in love with you since the day you walked into that office in the red coat, so we've been very stupid for a long time. She laughed. She cried a little. She laughed again. It was the best sound I have ever heard in my life. We slept. I want to tell you the story ended there in that bed with the rain on the tin roof. It didn't. At 6:47 a.m. my phone started ringing. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately, and again. On the fourth call I picked it up and Marcus Vaughn's voice came through the receiver with the particular calm of a man who has already decided how much of your life he is going to destroy. Adrian. My daughter's phone is off. Her car is in my garage. The valet at the Sheraton says she left last night in a silver sedan matching yours. Would you like to tell me where she is, or would you like me to start guessing? I looked over at Elena, who had woken up and was watching me with her hair spread over my pillow and her eyes very awake. Sir, I said, she's safe, she's with me. The silence on the other end was worse than yelling. When he spoke again, his voice had gone very, very quiet. You are going to bring her home. You are going to drop her at the front gate. You are not going to come inside. And then you are going to drive to my office, and you are going to clean out your desk before 9, or I will have security do it for you. Do you understand me, Adrian? Yes, sir. I trusted you. Yes, sir, I know. You will not see her again. The line went dead. I set the phone down. Elena was already sitting up, pulling the sheet around her, and I could see her jaw working, and I knew before she opened her mouth what she was about to say. Don't take me back, Elena. Adrian, don't take me back. If you take me back, I go into that house and my mother has me on a flight to Zurich by tonight. My father has been threatening me with Zurich since I was 19. I am telling you now, if you drop me at that gate, I don't get to choose anything again. He'll press charges. He'll say he can't, I'm 26. I got in your car of my own free will, and I have 3 friends in that ballroom who will testify to it. She reached across and took my hand, and her fingers were freezing. Adrian, please. I know I have no right to ask you to blow up your whole life for a woman you slept with once. I know that, but I am asking. I looked at her. I thought about my job. I thought about the corner office. I thought about the 4 years of 80-hour weeks and the ladder I had almost finished climbing. I thought about my mother, who was so proud of me. I thought about the way Marcus Vaughn's voice had gone quiet. Then I thought about Elena walking barefoot across my floor in a ruined silk dress. Elena saying I noticed everything. Elena crying and laughing at the same time in the dark. Okay, I said, okay, we don't go back. She burst into tears. I have never in my life seen a woman look so relieved. We spent that morning making a plan. I want to make it clear we didn't run. That's the version Marcus Vaughn told everyone later, and I want the record straight. We didn't hide. Elena called her mother from my kitchen at 8 in the morning and said, in a voice I will remember forever, I am not marrying Julian. I am with Adrian. I am safe. I love you. Please tell Dad I'm not a runaway. I'm an adult. Then she hung up and shook for 20 minutes on my kitchen floor while I held her. I drove to the city that afternoon, alone. I walked into the office at 3 p.m., 6 hours after Marcus's deadline, and I cleaned out my desk with the whole floor watching. Nobody would look at me. HR handed me a non-disclosure and told me to sign it. I didn't sign it. I said very politely that I would be seeing my own lawyer, and I walked out of the building with a cardboard box and 2 colleagues secretly texting me their support and one, Priya, from research, actually hugging me in the lobby and whispering, "Good for you. He's a monster, Adrian, get her out." I drove back to Rosemere. Alina was on the porch waiting for me. She'd found a sweatshirt of mine in the closet and it was 3 sizes too big on her, and she was holding 2 mugs of tea, and when she saw the car she started crying again. That was the easy part. The hard part came in the weeks that followed. Marcus tried everything. He froze Alina's trust, which she'd expected, and told me not to worry about because she had her own money from her grandmother, money he couldn't touch. He called every consulting firm in 3 states and told them not to hire me. He got 2 of them to listen. He sent his lawyer to the cottage with an envelope of cash and a document he wanted me to sign, and I laughed in the lawyer's face, and Alina, in her sweatshirt, with her hair in a bun, took the envelope, walked to the fireplace, and lit it on fire while the man watched. I have never been more in love with anyone in my life. Julian Cole called Alina 3 times. She picked up the 3rd time and told him very kindly that she was sorry, that he was a good man, and that she had never been going to marry him. He surprised us both by saying he'd known. He said his family had pushed him into it the same way hers had pushed her. He wished her well. He asked if he could tell his mother it was mutual. Alina said yes. That was the end of Julian. Her mother came to see us in October. Alone, she drove up in a rental car and sat on the porch and cried for an hour before she'd let herself look at Alina. She said Marcus didn't know she was there. She said she'd been afraid to leave him for 31 years. She said watching her daughter leave had been the first brave thing anyone in the family had done in a generation, and she was sorry it had taken her this long to say so. Then she drove back to the city and told Marcus where she had been, and there was a fight I will never be told the details of, and 2 months later Alina's mother filed for divorce. Marcus stopped calling after that. He didn't come to our wedding. Alina's mother did. So did Priya from research, and my mother, and Alina's grandmother's oldest friend, and about 20 people from the town of Rosemere who had somehow become our people in 10 months. We got married on the porch of the cottage in May, 1 year and 1 month after that first kiss by the fireplace. Alina wore a simple ivory dress and no shoes. I wore a suit I'd bought second-hand in the village. We wrote our own vows. The line of hers I remember most: "You are the man who let me choose. Everyone else in my life told me what I was. You were the only one who asked. I will spend the rest of my life asking you back." The line of mine: I lost a job, an office, a career I thought I wanted, and the approval of a man I used to be afraid of. I have spent the last year discovering that I did not actually want any of those things. I wanted you, I just didn't know I was allowed to say so. We live in the cottage now. I do consulting work remotely for a firm out of Portland that didn't care what Marcus Vaughn said about me. Alina opened a small design studio in the village. We are not rich the way she was rich. We are not important the way I was important. Some nights she stands at the kitchen window and I catch her looking out at the pines, and I know she is thinking about the ballroom, about the champagne dress, about the woman she was supposed to become. She has never said she regrets it. I would know if she did. Some nights I stand at the same window and I think about the parking garage. I think about the 4 minutes I sat in that car before she opened the door. I think about how close I came to driving away. I think about the person I would be right now if I had a man with a corner office and a good salary and a slow, careful, empty life. Watching the boss's daughter get married in April to a man she'd been on 4 dinners with. I think about that man and I feel sorry for him. Alina came home from the studio last week and dropped her bag by the door and kissed me and said, "Did you know? Did you know when I got in the car?" "Know what?" "That we were doing this, all of this." I thought about it. "I knew when you said take me somewhere private," I said. "I knew what it was going to cost. I knew I was going to say yes anyway. I just didn't know I was going to be this happy." She smiled at me, that same smile, the one from the fireplace. The one from the porch, the one I plan to spend the rest of my life earning. I don't know what you'll take from this. Maybe you think I was reckless. Maybe you think Alina was spoiled. Maybe you think we got lucky that her mother finally left, that Julian was gracious, that Priya hugged me in the lobby, that the town of Rosemere took us in. Maybe you're right about all of it. Maybe love only wins in stories like this because I'm the one telling it, and I get to leave out the nights she cried missing her father. And the mornings I sat in front of my empty inbox wondering if I had traded a career for a fantasy. But I'll tell you what I've learned. There is a moment, sometimes it's a whole moment, sometimes it's 4 minutes in a parking garage when the door of your life opens. And the person on the other side of it whispers something you have been waiting to hear for longer than you knew. And you can lock the door, you can keep your job, your safety, your father's approval, your good name, your careful life. Most people do. There is no shame in it. But if you have ever even once met eyes with someone across a room and felt the whole architecture of your life shift, if you have ever even once said no to something you wanted because you were afraid of what it might cost, then you already know what I am telling you. Sometimes the private place she wants you to take her is not a cottage. Sometimes it's the version of yourself you have been hiding. And she is asking very quietly if you will finally go there with her. So here is my question for you tonight, and I want you to sit with it. If the person you have been quietly, secretly, hopelessly wanting for months, the wrong person, the forbidden person, the one who would cost you everything, got into your car tomorrow and whispered, "Take me somewhere private," would you drive? Or would you send them back upstairs? Tell me in the comments. I read them. I read all of them. Tell me the moment you almost said yes. Tell me the moment you did. Tell me the moment you didn't and wish you had. If this story moved you even a little, tap that like. It genuinely helps more than you know. Drop a comment with your answer because I want to hear it. And if you want more stories like this one, bold, messy, honest, the kind where love wins but doesn't win cheap, subscribe and turn on the bell. I'll see you in the next one. Drive safe tonight. And if she asks, you already know what to do.